This is the Starlight Express Alumni Podcast.
Hi, I'm Rachel. I'm honored and thrilled to have been the very first Rusty ever in the workshop in 1983 that we did in London, and with Francis Raffel, with Drew Williams. I'm trying to think. Bobby wasn't in it. I'm trying to think who else. And a lady that was the original Pearl. I'm just trying to think of her name. She's a big Hollywood actress now, big comedian. Can't remember, but it'll come to me while I'm actually doing it. But it was a thrill, and I'm very glad to be with you guys today.
Oh man, I cannot tell you how much of an honor it is for me. I first got involved with Starlight Express in 1987, 88 for the German production. And as soon as I found out about Starlight Express, I went to the New York show, and your name obviously came up, and since then it was just legendary. And
that just means I'm old. That's all.
Yeah, hello, because I'm now a legend. So. But it's funny because when I opened in Starlight in Germany, and I think you came to the opening in Germany, I believe.
No, I didn't. I was in 87, because I didn't. I don't know where I was. That I was doing something.
Okay.
But I just remember who that young lady's name is, and people will not know this. But the original Pearl in the workshop was a lady called Tracy Ullman, and Tracy Ullman
yes.
Yeah, she's a big Hollywood star, and I remember. She's standing there making faces at me when I'm trying to be serious, working with Trevor Nunn and Andrew Lloyd Webber. And at that time, she hadn't married her millionaire husband that took her away to America. But she was meant to be the original Pearl before Stephanie.
That is interesting. Did not know that, because we Americans know the Tracy Ullman show, and then her just blowing up from that.
Yeah.
Phenomenal. So let's back up. So obviously, I want to try to get as much.
I had to get rid of that phone call. Sorry.
Okay, I have to get as much from you as possible from the beginning. Everyone's loving the back story. For example, how did you first find out about Starlight Express?
I was teaching at Pineapple Studios, and I came out of the studio one day, and there was a big sign that said, wanted very young people who could roller skate for Andrew Lloyd Webber's newest musical. And I came to the UK specifically to be in an Andrew Lloyd Webber musical. And the one that I had auditioned for before that was Cats, and I can't really dance. So they had groups FAAA to groups FGG, and I was in group FGG. And I remember asking Miss Gillian Lynn, rest in peace, the choreographer, well, look, don't they have any parts for crippled cats? Because I could sit and she said, no, darling, all these cats are very, very strong cats. And as it turned out, Deuteronomy, he sat on the friggin' stage and just sang. So I missed out on that. So anyway, I told my students about it. And I said, look, you guys should go to the audition and try out your skills for it. And one of my students, in fact, I'll never forget this guy. His name was Richard Welford. He came back and said, Mr. Shell, he called me Mr. Shell in those days. He said, Mr. Shell, I didn't make it, but you should go because you're always telling us to go. So you should go. So I went home and I had spoke to my ex-wife then, and I said to her, I said, look, I'm going to do this. And I had a pair of roller skates that EMI Records had given to me because I had been signed to them. So I went to the audition, and I remember there's being a table with Arlene and Trevor and just a whole table full of people, and I couldn't stop. I knew how to go. I didn't know how to stop or anything. So I remember taking my music and just giving it to the piano player and dashing by. And Trevor Nunn said, "Ooh, theater in the rounds." I think I gave him the idea about doing it because I skated around them because I didn't know how to stop. And I had 4 auditions, and I remember the last audition that Trevor and Andrew came up and put their arms around me, and I said, "Oh, they're gonna tell me no nicely." They offered me the lead, and it's changed my life from that day to this. I mean, it really, literally, the things that change your lives. I mean, I can count on my hand. The marriage to my wife, the birth of my children, Starlight Express, and let's say my first novel. And Starlight changed my life completely.
Wow, that's incredible. My goodness, that's awesome. Thanks for sharing that. Now, what was for you what was the rehearsal experience like?
Well, it was in two phases. First, the workshop phase, which we only did the first act. and we performed that just to piano to a group of Andrew Lloyd Webber's investors. That was in a place in Leicester Square, right next to it's a theater now, but it was just a big hall at that time. And we did the first act, and I remember at the end of that, me and Francis were standing there, and you could feel from the audience. I mean, the first act ended with, singing Starlight Express. And we could feel and look just from the people's faces and everything that we had something different, something special. We didn't know what, but we did. And I remember Andrew, I had my little autograph book at that time, and Andrew signed my book and he said, "Onwards and upwards." So we knew then that something was going to happen to it. And I remember I got cast to sing backup for the Police, the group, the Police, the Synchronicity tour. But I had to get permission from Andrew. And Andrew said to me, he said, "You want to go out and sing in this pop band?" I said, "Yeah, I do. And I didn't know that at that time he was just basically making sure that I was going to be committed to coming back to doing the production. And of course I would. Of course I was. So he stayed in contact during that entire time, because we finished the workshop in, I think it was in October, November of 1983. And we started the rehearsals about a year later, almost a year later to that time. So it was being part of a very, very, we knew we had something special. We did, it was very, very weird. And then when we got into rehearsal for the proper show, we first learned the show on the flat stage, just to get all the dancers and get dance movement. We were like, how the fuck is this going to work? I remember Danny John Jules, who's now the star of Red Dwarf and everything else. He was Rocky One, and Danny was like him and Jeffrey Daniels were like the best skaters in the company. So if Danny and Jeffrey could do it, then the rest of us had to at least try, So we were, me and Chrissy Wickham, Chrissy was the original Smoking Car. We would stand there, literally holding each other's hands and crying. And we go up to Danny, look, I give you $50. Please don't do that trick. Please don't do that trick. We figured if they said Arlene, it couldn't be done, we wouldn't be made to do it. It was very interesting having Arlene as our choreographer, because Arlene didn't skate. But I think the bonus for that was that she did not know what was not what was not possible for us. And since nothing was possible, it was impossible to her, we had to at least learn how to do it. And I think that's how we were able to achieve such knockout, choreography, because she wasn't confined to what they said we could or could not do on skates. In fact, I go and see the show now, I said, how did we ever do that? I mean, how is it possible? And I remember Trevor saying, the trippy thing about the Starlight Express was actually getting us all in the same corner of the stage at the time of when the music was meant to be. But we refined it. I mean, it's incredible, because now the whole skating situation is a Starlight art. We were the guinea pigs, and they let us skate the way we could skate. But by the time it's gotten to Bochum and everything like that, it's a whole phenomenon. I don't need a little kept secret. I went to Bochum and tried to be in the Bochum production, but I could not get my tongue around the German at all. It was like, I don't know. Props to you German Starlighters, because I think the hardest thing for me was that I knew it in English, and every time I would get to a wrong thing that I could not remember, I would revert back to English. I remember these little German kids sitting there looking at me going, "What? Was? What? What the fuck is he saying?" So to this day, I tend to think the only shows that might have been more difficult than Starlight, you have to be bionic to do Starlight Express. Maybe Spider-Man. I met Rennie, I think his name, Rennie, who's in Hadestown now. Mm-hmm. I met him, and he was telling me about all the stuff they had to do. But Starlight remains a challenge. Everybody can't do that show. And for us, the ones that did and lived to tell the tale, yay! Because it takes skills that most normal West End Broadway, any musical, even pop shows, it takes skills that they don't have to deal with.
Yeah. I remember Fred Talixon. He had Madonna wanted to do some skating in some video she was doing, so she hired Fred Talixon, who was on Starlight with us. Mm. He was out in L.A. And so I guess, people knew someone, and she needed someone to help her learn how to skate for a video. And they actually hired a Starlight alumni to teach her. Yeah. That was awesome. So on your opening night, it sounded like there was a lot that had to happen to get to that opening night. Can you share with everyone just that experience of getting to opening night and what that was like to actually open, and what was it like to actually get to that moment where you finished the opening night performance?
Well, the thing about it is, previews, before we get to opening, previews was really, really intense. I remember the first time that an audience saw Starlight, we got a standing ovation right after Freight 3. That you guys, I think it's called something else in Germany, but Freight 3. We got a standing ovation at that moment. And the show at that time was nearly 3 hours long. In fact, Rusty had a song, he had an aria called Be a Pump that I just knew it was going to be my Tony award-winning number. And I remember after that, Trevor came to me, and not Trevor, Andrew came to me and said, Ray, we have to cut this number. Because first of all, it was confusing the audience, because at that time, Rusty was a pump, not a steam train. He was a pump, a water pump train that wanted to be an engine. And the Be a Pump song was about how he'd been bullied and everything because he was not even really a train. So the Starlight Express had to do double duty. He had to take Rusty from being a water pump train, make him an engine, and then make him win. So it was actually slowing the show down, confusing the audience. I hated the fact that I couldn't do that song. It was a wicked song. In fact, there are little vestiges of the song still in the show, little melodies that's still in the show. And every time I hear it, I go, oh, Be a Pump. So that went. And the thing about it is a few things got cut and glued together, and we would have to learn those things during the day and then perform them at night. So by the time we got to opening night with the Queen and everything like that, it was just an incredible, incredible night. I remember the biggest thing in all of our minds was not falling. That was a thing. None of us wanted to fall. I mean, none of us. So our focus was staying on our feet and actually making sure that everything that we had to do got done without falling. And I remember at the end of the show, the Queen coming up and meeting, introducing her. She didn't have to introduce me. Introduced myself to her, and she said to me, how wonderful it is that romance can happen between two trains. And I just went like, yes, yes, Your Majesty. I didn't know what the fuck it meant. Yes, yes, Your Majesty, Your Majesty. But it was a magical, and we knew then, had no idea that the show was going to run for as many years as it's still running. In fact, the reviews, we thought we were going to close because reviews came out, and the reviews weren't generally positive. A lot of it was that it was I do believe it was a lot of jealousy because Andrew had, he had a Phantom Phantom was in the works, but Cats was still on Broadway. Cats was still doing wonderful things. And I think they didn't, and they thought that Andrew, because of his money, had an unfair advantage of creating something like the Starlight Express set in London. I mean, the only thing I'd say that could actually, that was just wondrous to behold. I mean, Bochum blew my mind when I first saw it because it was bigger than even the London set. But just to go into a theater, the Paula Victoria, where Fiddler on the Roof had been, and then see this whole thing encompassing the entire auditorium was just amazing. In fact, Starlight could be running in London right now. Andrew took it off to make way for Bombay Dreams. Big mistake, huge. And it closed. It didn't, but in fact, I'm still instigating for them to actually take one of those Olympic things that was, I think it was 212 Olympics. They still got some of those things, and actually do a Bochum in London. It would run, it would make, because it's perennial. Kids are born every single day. There's enough Starlight fans that the show would support itself in London. I tend to think it might happen. There's news afoot that something may happen, especially with the success of the new Bochum show, which is hot. The new Bochum show is hot. So we'll see.
Wow. It's so true. That's so true. Right now we have Starlighters that are performing that are the children of Starlighters. Like Debbie's daughter Lauren performed in it.
Wow.
And I interviewed an alumni today earlier. I have 3 interviews today. So the earlier one today is the daughter of the MD of London Starlight. Yes. You probably could guess who that is.
Wow, who is it?
It's Georgina.
Oh my God. Okay.
She did it for like five years, so that was a great interview. I guess 5 years. So she did. I started off as Dinah, and it ended up being Pearl.
I
And
remember
she
yeah.
did the 25th anniversary, and she also just did the 30th anniversary. And so we're seeing the children
Yes.
going in there, and even the children of the fans are now fans. And I'm connected with with most of the fans in Germany, and they are incredible. So what are some? I know you probably have like a million memories, but the challenge right now for you is, aside from what you've already mentioned, what's the one memory, as I ask the question, that comes to mind right away, the greatest memory you have from your experience with Starlight Express?
I think one that really, really sticks out in my head was the night that Michael Jackson came to see the show. And, I see and I'm reading all this stuff about Michael and all that stuff. And all I can say is that the only person that really knows what happens, those kids and him. But when he came, the weird thing about it, he didn't talk like that. He didn't talk like that. That was something that was part of the MJ thing. And I remember he invited me. He was here in town to do Say video with Paul McCartney. And he came to me at the end of the show and he said, "You made me cry." And I said, "Well, I hope I made you cry with pleasure." He said, "Yes." He invited me to come and hang out with them. And I was so freaked out that this was Michael Jackson and he wanted to hang out with me that I didn't do it. I think a few times that this has happened to me, and now I'm ready. It's too late. But now I'm ready. But back then it was just like, so when I remember, we didn't know he was in the house, but we just knew before we went out to start the show, the audience was screaming and yelling, and I got, God, they really, really want to see us. And we went outside, and sitting down in the paddock was Michael Jackson, and he's much taller than I thought he would be. We were on skates, which is like about 2 or 3 inches off the ground, and he was taller than us. Wow. And in fact, he came back to see the show. In fact, at one time, I think that there was a talk that Lloyd Webber was going to do an animated version of it, and Michael was going to play Rusty, and I said, "Yeah, Michael can play. Yeah, I know. Yeah, Michael, and it was going to be his voice. But that I remember Spielberg coming. Everybody came to see the show. But Michael sticks. Diana Ross came. Stevie Wonder came. He invited me and my ex-wife to his birthday party because my ex-wife and him were born the same day. Little Richard. All these people. Cheetah Rivera. Everybody came. Bobby from Dallas, I could forget the actor's name. So there's so many. And one big thing too that I remember, we used to, on matinee days, we were so thrilled and proud to be the Starlight Express company. We would leave the show after the matinee and skate into the park. And that soon quickly stopped because the intensity of just performing that show 8 times a week meant that you had to rest as much as possible. And that stopped. But I remember all of us en masse leaving the stage door, past the fans, and just running out there and just proudly wearing our Starlight coats and stuff like that. We felt like pop stars, rock stars, because there was no show like that in the world at that time. I remember Jeff Shankly, like all the what do you call those, the people that I forget what we had, the marshals. The marshals weren't in the original production. We didn't have marshals, but what happened was they were put in as safety features. Because I remember Jeff Shankly was chasing Jeffrey Daniels, and the back track had not linked up, and Jeffrey was performing and not watching because he was engaging with them. He almost fell off the top track into the bottom. He would have been crushed in the machinery. We had to stop the entire show, so they put the marshals in that was there, giving us the flags to know when different things had lined up. So different things in the show. The nets in the very beginning wasn't there, and then the lady, she killed me. Wood, I forget her name. The one, she was this is control. Buffy, the original Buffy. That was her. She fell off she was coming off a race and just flew into the audience. It's funny as shit.
Wow.
They're going, "Oh my God!" Flew into the audience. So all the netting and all that stuff was put there. So the show itself spawned the different bits and pieces that became a part of the production and part of the things that are happening in Bochum as well. because of the dangers of doing that show. I mean, we only did the show with the complete original cast for 4 performances. 4 performances. The first 4 for 4 performances, and then after that, the understudies were on, because at that time you wouldn't know what the injury situation is or what the wear and tear on our bodies were until we actually did it. So it was.
Yeah, it's funny because we talk about this, that Starlight Express, the Starlighters are standing literally on the shoulders of many of us, especially you guys, that were the very beginning. That's why it was so exciting for me to interview you, because we're standing on your shoulders, and over the decades, things improved to where, so now that Starlighters can do these massive tricks and these incredible things on a safe set, because I heard some of the alumni shared your set, how dangerous your set was.
Yeah, I mean, the bridge, I remember one night, the bridge, the door closed, we went up, and it went up like this, and it never leveled out. So me and Greaseball, Jeff, and Stephanie were up there, "Well, we're victorious, we're gonna win." This thing gonna level out. So I mean, we just stood up there, but all we could do was stand there and sing and pray that that they will get us down. But it's the most incredible experience. And what it did for me in terms of confidence was just amazing. There's no show I've ever done since, including Lion King and all the rest of them, that I said, well, look, this is a piece of cake compared to Starlight. I mean, I remember I had 4 what I call skating teachers, and 2 that was actually that took care of me. They every month they'd come to the dressing room after the show and just make sure that my muscles and everything was was massaged properly, wasn't tensing up or rupturing or anything like that. They took care of us. I mean, the really useful company took very, very good care of us. And because having Trevor Nunn as our director was just incredible, because he kept a very calm, very, very, I'd say passive, because some shows can be very aggressive, just a passive kind of mentality through this aggressive show, because Starlight is aggressive. I mean, the thing about it is you have to make that stuff look like it's easy, but baby, like the Rockies number at the right, please. I mean, that was like, I had to sit there and watch them do that every single night going, I'm glad that's not me.
It's funny, because that was my thing. I was a Rocky. That's my whole time. I did the contract about total of 6 years, and so just Rocky. And I watch it when I would watch it, and I'll say to myself, I can't believe I do that.
Yeah.
Because it was just, and then it's like 3 minutes of nonstop.
Yes.
But you mentioned a couple of things that have to do with just what you learned in Starlight that's applicable to life.
Yes.
So what are some of the greatest life lessons that you draw from your experience with Starlight Express?
The thing about it is that it's all inside of you. It really is. I mean, it took me a long time to actually understand the lyrics to that song and what it meant. And the thing about it is, each of us is the starlight. We are the star and the light of our own lives. And everything that you can or want to do, you can do it if you believe it. And it's nothing that, it's not outside yourself, it's right there inside. And at the time, I remember, like, the second year after I played that part every way I could, it sort of dawned on me. And I think what it did more than anything else was just give me the confidence to know that, well, I can compete with those guys. I can do that. Because like I said, I never considered myself physical. I was a kid in my neighborhood that they would fight not to have me on their baseball, or they would fight not to have me because I was not athletic or any of those kind of things at all. I mean, Arlene would tell you I was like a Rusty. I was Madam No. There's this ballerina called I would say, no, I ain't doing that. There was one guy who the first day, you know how guys are toxic masculinity, blah, 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 I'm this guy. There was a trick. He had to jump up, turn around, and land on his feet, land on his skates. Baby, this thing jumped up, turned around, one foot was pointed that way, the other foot was pointed the other way. It didn't come around. Honestly, this was the second day of rehearsal. He left the rehearsal room screaming, and I was like, oh my God, what have I gotten myself into? You know, so it taught me to, at the same time, yes, you can do anything, but anything that you want to do, it's got to be within the realm of possibilities of your body and your mind. I was like terrified of the bowl, terrified. So what I had to do, I had to kill the bowl. My coach said, you have to kill that bowl. So what I had to do every single day for I think it was the first 6 months, 8 months of the show, I came in early and wrote everything I had to do in the bowl. All my entrances, I did it before I had to do it, just to make sure that I had the confidence to know that I could do it. My Rusty used to skate low to the ground, really, really low to the ground, because I figured if I fell, I'd be close to the ground. And I will tell a big secret. I'm sure a lot of my friends know, but I never won the race. And I admire Trevor, because they could have gotten rid of me and gotten another Rusty, who could do all I couldn't, but they thought enough of me that what they did was gave me a double. I had a skating double. The last race, I would go up in the thing, we'll be victorious. And me and P.P. Arnold, who's having a fabulous time right now to her new album, The Adventures of P.P. Arnold. She was my belle, and she would, come on, Rusty, go quick. But Dustin, that's right. Me and Dustin went up in the top of the thing. We go around the front of it, and then at that corner, that hellish corner going down, you know what I mean? That thing, that hellish corner, another Rusty, Richard Bodkin, would take over, and I would climb down the stairs, get backstage, go inside the tunnel. Richard would go into the tunnel, and then I'd come out going, I must find Pearl. I must find Pearl. So I never won the race. I never got to win the race. In fact, my last performance, they put an L sign on my back so that they would know that Richard was the one actually doing it. But and I wanted to do the race. In fact, the first time that I after I'm going to do this, I think the first time we did rehearsal, I actually won, but I was racing in such a crazy way that I brought down everybody else. I remember Stephanie saying, "You brought us all down." I said, "Yeah, but I won." So what they needed was a racer, a skater who was safe, who was consistent, and that was not me. So Richard Bodkin did all those races for me. Thank you, Richard. But a bunch of things. I remember doing singing the Starlight song before we opened on I forget. I think it was Russell Hardy's television show, and this was the first time that the song was ever heard in public. And after the song was over, the audience would not stop applauding. There were certain things that gave us signs that this was going to be special. I mean, they would not stop applauding. And Andrew was like, wow. And to this day, like I said before, I'll hear it. I understand that especially Miss Avita, Elaine Page, plays the number on her show constantly. Thank you, Miss Elaine. But it's part of it. I'll hear little things. I'll go. Especially when I went to Bochum, I heard little things. I said, "Oh, that's interesting." I could still hear Rustyisms that we created back then. That's still in the show, which is great. It's complimentary, and it's just a connection to the original legacy of 1984, and just that year, 1984.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, you are definitely highly respected, my friend, and it was just an honor to have you on here. Just share this. There's so much I just want to keep hearing the stories, because that's the fans and the other alumni are. I'm asking, what do you like most about these interviews? And there's only been 2 interviews that they've heard. And what they love the most is the fact going back and how did it start, the beginnings, the starting of it, and you sharing that. And I'd love to have you come back on.
Sure.
You've got so much information there that just people would love to hear as part of history now. I mean, Starlight is a massive part of musical theater history and broke so many boundaries and broke so many records, and still to this day breaking records.
Yeah.
And, but Starlight, I know Starlight for me is a big part of my life, but not my whole life. I know it's a big part of your life, but not your whole life. What are you doing these days? Share with everyone what you're doing.
Well, I leave on the 25th of May to make a film, and I can't say anything else. I want to tell it so bad, but I can't. That's all I can say. But
Not a problem.
I've been writing. My first novel was called Iced, and I just got the screenplay from Lee Daniels. The guy Menno Mays did the screenplay. He's the one that wrote The Color Purple and Raiders of the Lost Ark. And I was kind of sort of like, I want to write the screenplay. But this Lee won it, an Academy Award winner. And when I got his screenplay back, I understand why he's an Academy Award winner, because it's so easy. It's not easy getting a whole book in a film. But I must say he did a great job on it. I mean, he got stuff in the screenplay I wouldn't have gotten, I wouldn't have done, because I didn't, it's a different perspective. So I'm doing that. My current novel is a thing called Feeding Miranda. And I've just did the fourth draft of that for a company in London called Sugar Films. So that's happening. I'm up for a couple of plays. I'm going to hopefully be working at the Arena Stage in a show there. And I just found out yesterday I got to go and learn this crazy song for the Broadway company of Caroline or Change. Hi, Sharon D. I hope I can actually be on the stage with you. So I've just got an agent in the United States because I've only recently moved back to the USA because my mom passed and I'm the oldest, so I had to do that with my siblings, and taking care of her estate. So it's like I'm starting all over again here in the United States. Not exactly, because people know who I am. I was like, you know me. So it's making it just a little bit easier. But it is definitely starting all over, because in the States, as you know, they have a different person of any shade, color, size, weight, height, whatever. They got them out there. So it's bringing that cachet of what I've learned to this, which is making a big. In fact, the guy that's the assistant to my agent said to me, "Oh my God, I've just been reading about you in Andrew Lloyd Webber's memoirs." I'm like, really? Really? So I thank the Lord for that. I really, really do, because if I had been 5 minutes late, I would have never got to London. I would have never, if I hadn't listened to Richard Welford, I wasn't going to the audition, because I figured, even back then I wasn't that young, because I thought when they say very young, they wanted teenagers, and I definitely wasn't a teenager, even though people, I remember when I met John Major, and we did the Starlight. We did the thing at the Royal Albert Hall with Andrew, and he sort of patted me on the head and said, "Well done." I'm like, "Man, do you know how old I am?" So it's reestablishing myself here, and I'm really happy for that. Meeting new colleagues here in America, because I got back here, I didn't know nobody. I mean, I didn't, even the people that I knew had moved out of New York, or had moved out of the business. I was fortunate. My godfather just won a Tony. That's Andre DeShields for Hadestown. And I want to play that part. I want to play that part. So he's been introducing me to people. I've just got through going to the National Black Film Festival, Theater Festival in Winston-Salem. I took my grandson to it. Rusty has grandchildren. So it really is like starting all over again. It really, really is.
If anybody wants to find out more about you, I know you're on social, you're on Facebook, but you have a site. How can they find out more about you? I know right on this page, let me speak to everyone that's listening and watching. Guys, right below, I have all the links for Rachel. There's videos below, and
the best place right now is the Facebook one, and I have an Instagram, which is @Rachel. And I'm going to have my nephew in Germany, Sebastian. We're working on my website, which would be www.rachelglobal.net. And I'm hoping to have that up and running by the beginning of next year. But we're putting it together now. So I'm going to have my literary works on there. I'm looking for gamers, because my grandson does code, and he's gamers. Gaming is like bigger than movies and records. So I'm looking for people who have ideas for games and create games. And I want to have a section on my site where if you have an idea for a game, put it there and let's make some money. And I have my publishing company is Street Angels Books, because I've been very blessed and fortunate to get published. But there's a lot of great writers out there who will never see the light of day, because for whatever the reason, they don't believe in themselves, or they don't push. Let's put this ambition is relative. It's very relative. But if you have I believe if you have a art and you have a desire to do something, then the least I can do as an artist that's broken through something is to create a platform for that to happen. So I want to hear from writers. I want to hear from singers. I've just got through producing a group here in Wilson, North Carolina called Tribe Wilson. And we did a cover version of Nirvana's "Come As You Are," which is really, really interesting. I got hooked up with some people that work with Cardi B in New York, and they've done a mix and they're doing a remix. So again, I've always been involved in the music industry as far as working with artists. Some of my students are Karen Wheeler from Soul to Soul. I worked with Sia before she became Sia, Cleveland Watkins. I'm working with Carl McIntosh at the moment on a musical called Street Angels that we did years and years ago. In fact, one of my Street Angels has grown up to be a BBC producer, a lady called Jane Walbank, and she's going to be producing this for the BBC. So the great thing about growing old people is that you get old, but the old people, they get old too, and they become important, and they can help you. So,
oh yeah. Oh yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So
right.
I'm doing all of that. I'm just as excited as I am about what's happening in my life as I was 40 years ago. And so hit me up on @Rachel Instagram, or hit me up on Facebook. I got like over 5,000 people, but sometimes I have about 2 or 3 sites. But if you leave me a note, I'll tell you where to go. Yeah.
Right. Okay, guys, I'll have all those links right below. Just link up, connect with him. Again, take him up on that offer. If you're an artist, please follow through, follow up. And I've never
been making films and stuff, so I'm looking for my side. I want this. We have a TV show I'm working with a young man called Sherrod Knox here in Wilson, and we've been doing a thing called Greyhound that my friend Clark Peters has contributed to, and it's about homelessness in small town America, but it's grown into homelessness all over the world. In fact, we coupled the first season is homelessness in North Carolina and London. The second season will be homelessness in Atlanta and Paris. Third season will be New York and Amsterdam. So I'm looking for actors, writers, because with the global, with things like Netflix and Amazon and Hulu, there's no reason why we can't have our own.
Absolutely.
Content is content. And you don't need gazillions of dollars, to do what you need to do. I'm inspired by people by Spike Lee. Spike Lee's like the daddy of everybody. He was able to take an idea. He got his friends together. He made it on a credit card. I don't even think he spent. I think he spent like maybe $17,000, which sounds like a lot. But if you think about all the extracurricular activities that you may spend your money on that cost almost $17,000 a year. Take that money, put it into your art, do it yourself. You can't wait for people to do it. And for me, I think that's what the message of Starlight is more than anything else. It's inside you. If you got an idea, if you can see it, you can do it. And like Rocky Horror Show, see it and believe it. And we got to say one last thing. I went to see Bat Out of Hell. Andre took me to see Bat Out of Hell at the New York City Center, which is friggin' amazing. I remember I did Hair with Meatloaf years and years ago and saw him performed it, and the whole album at Wembley. But to see it fully staged, it was in the UK recently. If you're in New York and you see Bat Out of Hell, those kids, I sat there holding my throat because these kids are singing themselves crazy 8 times a week. This is pure rock and roll, but an amazing, amazing show, incredible show.
Well, I cannot tell you how much I appreciate it. I definitely want to connect with you again and do maybe a part 2, because I think that you have just all this energy. You have energy, and you're speaking like you have another 100 years in you. And that you have all this ambition. I love it, and it's the kind of energy that we need for the young people. That's going to help encourage them, inspire them, motivate them, and even push them or even pull them. You're like in a position where you're pulling people. You're not pushing, but pulling people, and it's awesome. I love it. Thank you so much.
Pete, let me just say one more thing. 1984, after we had the races and stuff like that, we had a Starlight doctor, and I was feeling very depleted because that summer you'd be racing, all the juices and stuff be coming out of us. He put me on something called royal jelly. I don't know if you ever heard of it. Royal jelly is what they feed the queen bee, which makes her live 6 times longer than her. I have been taking royal jelly since 1984. It works. It works on a cellular level. Get you some royal jelly.
Well, you know what? That's awesome. I'm going to get me some royal jelly.
Great. I am dead up serious. I celebrate my birthday on September 22nd. I will be 68 years old.
Awesome, man. You look incredible.
I still feel 19 years old in my mind.
Yeah.
And that's where it needs to be in your mind. Get you some royal jelly. It works.
Royal jelly. All right. I appreciate it, buddy. Thank you so much, sir. I deep respect for you, and I'll let you know when yours airs. Everyone connect with Rachel. Now, have you been knighted yet?
I think I have to be British to do that.
Well, you take care. God bless you, man. And I'm going to stay connected. And I'm going to send me the links, and I'm going to do a lot more research, deeper research, and get that on your page. And I can't wait for people to see this. They're going to love this. Thank you so much, sir. You have a great day.
Peter, thank you so much for just giving me the opportunity. I appreciate that.
You're welcome. My pleasure, my honor. And you take care. Have a great day.
Okay, then. You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone, for joining me on this episode of Starlight Express Alumni Podcast. Next week, I will get together with another alumni. Be sure to subscribe. You can subscribe right here on the website at starlightexpress.club. We are definitely on the iTunes and Stitcher, and we're looking to get on the other platforms, so make sure you check there, subscribe there, and stay connected. If you are a Starlight alumni, please be sure to reach out to me if you would like to be on the podcast. Would love to hear your stories and share your story with the Starlight Express fans and other alumni. Look forward to sharing with you next week. Everyone, have a great day.